Welcome to the Shakaama Live Show with your host, Shakaama. In an effort to get back at Judge Kavanaugh, California has dealt a severe blow to the entire judicial system nationwide. Thank you all for tuning in, and I want to say try and watch as long as you can on videos of mine to push me to the next level. You all may not know, but I'm trying to get to do a documentary in Japan and China and Asia to do these to go to the manufacturers that I keep talking about the fully functional female robot wife, right? I also am trying to raise money for a scholarship for black men, young adults, for STEM majors. I have a video out talking about the top 10 highest paying majors in college for black men. I'm trying to also put together a nonprofit that will completely reinvigorate the black community physically. I'm talking about actual physical communities by having a free nonprofit mentorship to get black people into owning their own businesses, and if they already own their own business, to be a complete mentorship for free so that they can provide goods and services in the black community so that we do not depend on anybody else who normally, namely the Asians, come into the black community and simply just suck out the money and don't reinvest in the community whatsoever. So we want to try and physically identify black communities around the United States that we can target and have them open up their own businesses, and perhaps we might also, tangential to that, we might also do some credit unions to get funding for their businesses because business like this need funding. I don't think people understand that you don't just open up a business. It just doesn't happen like that. There's no magic wand where you say, poof, I have a 7-Eleven, right? Doesn't happen. Funnily enough, the largest McDonald's franchisee is a conglomerate of something like 2,000 McDonald's owned by black people. Okay, so please watch the entire video. In an effort to get back at Judge Kavanaugh for having dared to actually defend himself, and the evidence proving that the Dr. Ford was actually lying. There's no simpler way to say that other than she was completely lying, especially when her best friend came out and said no, didn't happen, not him, didn't happen, not him. And people were still, because they had placed so much stuff on her hopes and dreams to. Come on, people. This is a ploy that the Democrats have used time and time again. It's so, and literally, if I were in any position of power around that, when the thing began, I would say, do not come up with he did such and such to some woman before, so that when they come up with that stuff, then I can point to them and say, hey, you all need to be recused from this thing because you all are just playing dirty politics. That's all you're doing. So in California, the case was a student allegedly. Now, they said, he was tried and convicted and found guilty on all counts. In this day and age, I'm going to side with not believing it. This was a guy on a swim team, and supposedly they went to a party and they got drunk, but nobody ever talks about the man getting drunk, the young man, the young student getting drunk. So supposedly they were both drunk, and he did something to her with his fingers behind a dumpster in an alley. Now they say, "Oh, he was found guilty. He was found guilty." Okay, how did she get to behind a dumpster in an alley? Just tossing that out there. Haven't even looked at the case. How did she get behind a dumpster in an alley? I'm just tossing that out there. Give me a break. You think some dude grab some girl, put her over his shoulder, and just begin to walk her to the alley and behind the dumpster, and nobody even said anything? I haven't even looked at the case. Haven't even looked at it. It seems preposterous. And he's a all-star swim athlete, right? Okay, here's the deal. What's the problem, Shakaama? Okay, so when it comes to sentencing, the judge is a person who does the sentencing, right? The jury can make recommendation. The DA can make recommendation, but the judge is the one who decides, makes the ultimate and final decision on sentencing. Drinking my water, being good. Okay, so he sentenced him to 6 months probation. With time served, he got out and he finished. No, sentenced him to 6 months in jail. He got out in 3 months due to good behavior. And they said, why was that? It says, well, this is according to the law. And actually, this is according to the recommendation of the sentencing body, right? So, judge, there are laws that say, judge, you will sentence like this. On top of that, although the prosecution says, we want 10 years, we want 12. Now, notice the things that he was accused of and found guilty of was not in the least bit traumatizing. As much as people want to make women out to be these delicate flowers, so I really, first of all, I question the case. But now the judges their hands are so tied, especially if they want to go for re-election, which this guy, I'm going to get to that, was up for re-election, right? So he's one of those elected officials. So he has to appease people with his court decisions. I think judges should not run for election at all. I think you elect your mayor, I think you elect your city council, and I think they should appoint judges. That way, people don't have direct interference into judges, because judges have to run for election, and then they will make court decisions based on polling. That's terrible, and we're going to get to that in a second. Okay, so got out in 3 months. Well, this is based on the sentencing board told him, we recommend 6 months because that is in the law. That is what the law says. It's a minimum, I think, of something like probably up to a month, but we recommend something like 6 months. And he said, okay, so be it, 6 months. And he said, I'm not going to ruin this kid's life. His life is already ruined, because now he has to register as all that sort of stuff, right? He has to do all of that stuff. He still has to do all that stuff. But the judge says, I'm not going to ruin his life with this, that, and the other. So I guess what he was thinking was, I'm only going to give him 6 months. This way, this whole time frame of 4 years of going to college and graduating around the time of life that he should graduate will still be in order, right? He got out in 3 months for good behavior. Okay. Now, um, and he probably did fine in jail because he probably told the other inmates what exactly happened, right? It was probably his girlfriend. It was probably, it was probably. I have not looked at the case, but everybody wants to paint men as whatever, right? So they said, no, you can't give him 6 months. The prosecution wanted 10 years, something like that, right? And he said, no, I followed the law. Okay, well, now we have a law professor at, what is it, Stanford University, come out and lead the charge to recall him. So, after the Kavanaugh, instituting Kavanaugh into the judiciary as a justice of the Supreme Court, California went to early voting and they recalled him. Okay, so there is an entire section of actual feminists, not regular women, feminists, who said this is not the way, this is not the way, and they opposed this black law professor at Stanford, and she was leading the charge. Although she clearly understood that, and she knew full well that he was doing exactly what he was told to do, right? Especially with the sentencing board breathing down his neck and saying, no, 6 months, that's all. So they recalled him. That's not the whole story. For free, we're going to give you the rest of the story. So they went to Jerry Brown, good old Governor Brown, and they said, we want to up the minimum sentencing on these cases. We want to up the penalties on these cases. We want to up also so your governor of California did everything that they asked. Everything. And there is an uproar that you don't hear, and you probably won't hear it in the news because the news is always going to take the side of the women who are screaming and yelling and whining. They said recalling this judge for doing his job will set a pallor across the entire country. You all did not think this through. Literally, first of all, we were joking that all of the judges would literally pack up and leave California. You say, oh, well, that's a good thing. No, we will be replaced with those women. You don't have to be a lawyer to be a judge. You don't have to be anything with law to be a judge. You can be appointed as a judge and have nothing. You just be friends of the mayor, friends of... you ready for that? You understanding how this works out now? You can run for judge and not have not a lick a day of any sort of legal knowledge. There is no requirement. It's just like any other position. You don't have to be Secretary of State. You don't have to be super duper secretarial experience. You just run for the office, and if people vote for you, they vote for you. You can run for judgeship, and if people vote for you, they vote for you. So at a whopping 50%, was it 50%? No, 40% recall, I believe, to 10% here, 10% there. These people are like, oh no, I don't want to do this. I would rather just, the opposition didn't come together. I believe it's 50%. So they recalled him with 50%, or if not more. Now that I think about it, if I'm reading the charts correctly. So nobody gave it a thought because, of course, they come out with he did this and he did this and he's terrible and he's awful. So they recall the judge, and on top of that, Jerry Brown signed into law all of these stricter sentencings for things. Hold on, that's not all. the governor also then expanded the definition of everything involving a woman. Everything. So now, if you're walking down the street and you say hello to a woman, she could take you to court. So now, if you're walking down the street and you look at a woman, she could take you to court. You think I'm kidding? You know it's bad if actual feminists organize to oppose the super duper feminists trying to oust the guy. And they kept saying, even the other law professors kept saying, you cannot do this. You cannot do this. You cannot do. Then we can't teach law because now it means nothing, because then you can be recalled for actually doing your job. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what the idea was, and I'll go look at the case, and I'll go over it piece by piece, and I will come back and because the only thing that I heard about was the wish to recall the judge, and then the updated piece was that they did recall the judge. And so then all of the legal system in California is in an uproar. Of course, you're not going to hear any sort of opposition in the news, because the news is never going to report to you how terrible this is. I want to thank you all for supporting me and everything, and let's do a hashtag judge recall if you watched all the way to this end. Give me a like on the video too. Thank you.